Good evening everyone, it's Rebecca from Silver Grey Foliage. I am in the workshop. It is past 11 o'clock. I can't sleep, so I have come to do some seed sowing. To be honest, what I actually came to do was to tidy the workshop so it was ready for me to do some seed sowing tomorrow. But if you listen, you'll be able to hear that it is absolutely raining and hailing and horrid outside. So I'm putting it off, going back into the house because I have to cross the garden in the dark and the rain. And I am just filling some seed trays so that it can soak up some water, ready for tomorrow's seed sowing. So we're sowing seeds in a number of ways this year. Always using this. So this is Silver Grey peat-free compost. And we are soil blocking, as you know. We're soil blocking not because I'm a lover of it, but because it is space efficient. And it works really well for some things. And I have to admit that I am impressed by how well it's worked for some of our seeds. Not everything is being soil blocked, and that's because some things I just can't see working, and so I'm not trying them. Other things can be quite fiddly and fussy, and so I'm sticking to what I know. And finally, I guess, when I know I've got space, these trays, I know them really well, and so they're reliable, and I'm using them because I trust them. And trusting the kit and the machinery and the materials that you work with is really important. So it is second week in April. It's Easter weekend, Easter Monday. And so I thought I'd talk you a little bit through what I am sowing now. I think the important thing before I go on, yes, hello to the marigolds, is that it's really important that you sow in accordance with your schedule. So I went really quiet in January and February, and that was for lots of reasons. But one of those reasons was because I wanted to avoid everyone else, all the other flower farmers, and my apologies to you if you're watching. But the reason I wanted to do that was because I really wanted to be free from influence. I wanted to make sure that the seed sowing schedule that Anthony and I put together was what we needed to grow for our customers. And that's really hard when you're watching everybody else going, oh, I'm growing this season, I'm growing that this season. It's so difficult to be kind of steadfast and go, no, I want to and I need to grow these things and I want to test those things. And so please, if you're a flower farmer, listen to this with a pinch of salt, because what I sow doesn't have to be what you sow. And also, when I sow it, doesn't need to be when you sow it. So you might ask, if that's the case, why on earth am I sharing this? And I'm sharing this because when we first started out, I found it really hard to work anything out at all. So I'm going to give you my reasons for sowing particular things now, so that those reasons might be what you think about rather than the actual seeds themselves. So as many of you know, we are scaling our growing this year. That has always been the plan for year 4. It has been a harder process than I expected, and I think that's because season 3 was so good and so long and so hard, and because life has presented a few challenges over winter. And so we have, I guess, slowed the pace of that. So whilst we intended to get loads done over winter, we've been quite sensible, I think, and just taken a break and had a rest. So that we've got a bit more energy going into season 4. And so that excitement, which we've both felt over winter, isn't lost to the exhaustion that comes with a challenging world of flower farming. And it is hard work. It's, you know, it's beautiful, but the beauty comes at the end of the hard work. So I think that rest has started to pay off for both of us, which is really good. So the sorts of things that I'm just looking outside to see if the rain has stopped, because it doesn't sound quite so noisy. So the sorts of things I'm sowing now, I'm sowing some grasses. Now historically, I've been a bit hit and miss on grasses. I don't really worry about them early in the season because I think that they look good kind of in late summer, early autumn with a bouquet, with the flowers that we grow. So I'm not too worried about getting an early start. I know that some people do a first sowing of things like bunny tails, Larga sylvatus, in autumn, and that does really well apparently if you put it in a tunnel. But remember that we are an urban flower farm. We don't have a huge amount of space. We only have a tiny tunnel. So we've got a 20 foot by 8 foot tunnel, and in growing terms, that's tiny. So for us, that is not a priority in our tunnel. It does give you longer stems apparently, and it gives you lovely big clumpy plants. But thus far, I haven't prioritised that. I think for me in particular, I'm not satisfied for our growing that it looks good with spring flowers. They'd be starting to flower in the next kind of week or so, and I'm not sure that they really go. It's a really good time to get ahead with dried flowers if that's what you're after. But for drying, grasses don't take very long to dry, so I'm happy to start them off a bit later. The other thing I think I started off by saying is that historically I've been a bit hit and miss, and I think that's because I've started them too early. It's been too cold and they've had to work too hard. So this year for us, I'm starting our grasses later. What else? So the other thing that we'll be starting off in the next day or so, maybe this evening if the rain carries on, is our Chinese asters, so Calistephus. So you can start half-hardies earlier, and we have started things like Cosmos already. So our first round of Cosmos are in the greenhouse and they're doing really well. However, Calistephus really like a longer day, so like daylight, or at least that's what I've read in my kind of geeky moments. So I decided that it wasn't worth starting those early because the day length wasn't long enough. So I am starting them now so that once they've germinated, they get the length of day that they need to apparently help them to do better. We'll see if it works. We did them last year. They did okay. Like, we had some lovely flowers. What I found with them, and this is their second year, so if you've not watched any of our things before, I have a bit of a 3-year policy. So year 1, they're allowed to be rubbish. Year 2, they've got to be better. Year 3, they've got to be a success. Or I have to absolutely adore them, and my customers have to absolutely adore them to stay in our growing schedules. So Calistephus are there. They need that longer day length, and they did okay last year. So that was year 1. This is year 2. I've done a bit of geeking out, learned a bit more about them. We'll see if they do a bit better this year. Okay, this tray is almost full. There's a couple more to do. Right, so I've talked about grasses and Chinese asters. What else is on my list? Zinnias are on my list. Now, again, zinnias, I was tempted to start a week or 2 ago. My reasons for sowing everything now is actually different for everything. You'll hear that as you go through. So zinnias I wanted to start, but I didn't have the space in the greenhouse. So that's why I haven't started them. I could have started them a wee bit earlier. They would have been happy, but I didn't have anywhere to put them. So I didn't grow them because there's no point germinating them and then thinking, I can't grow them on my head. Though I often tell people in our household to put things on their head when I don't know where to put them. You know, that just does not work with flowers. We have to have the space to put them. And again, we have limited growing space because we're urban. I don't have a barn, I don't have massive polytunnels. I'd love them, but what we do have works well for us. So we just have to be conscious of space and make sure that we're waiting until that space is available. So I know that we've just finished making lots of new beds. I know that I'm going to get lots of those beds filled over the course of this week. And therefore I know that I now have space coming up in my greenhouse for zinnias that germinate pretty quickly. So what else? I mean, there's a big bit of Tupperware over there full of seeds. I am doing seconds of some hardy annuals. So things like Ammi Majus that just started to give up the ghost a little bit when it got to kind of August, September, end of August, beginning of September. Season was still going, but we really needed more of that kind of frothy umbellifer type shapes. So I'm sowing seconds of that so that we don't run out this year. Because it's a real shame when your customers want something and you don't have it. So we are adding extras of those and then also doing succession. So there are some things that we grow in succession, not many. One of those is calendula. So we are doing a few successions of those this year. And the next one of those is going to go in, say, the greenhouse, don't mean the greenhouse at all, into the propagator in a minute. So I think that's most things. What else is on my list? A few sunflowers. I think that's about it. So I think what I've said is that the reasons are different. So some things I'm starting later because I think they need the warmth. Some things I'm starting later because I didn't have space for them. Some things because they need the day length. Some things because I need more of them and to make sure that we've got enough steam in our engine going all the way through to the end of our season. And there is a final thing. There's a final reason that I'm sowing because I definitely have done a lot of sewing this year, and whilst it's good for your hand-eye coordination and that kind of methodical practice is something that I really enjoy, there does come a point where you think, do I really need to sow more seeds? And Anthony said to me the other day, he gave me a little bit of a pep talk. He said, well, if we don't sow the seeds, we won't have the flowers. I'm going to ponder on that. If we don't sow the seeds, we won't have the flowers. And he's absolutely right. Like, if I don't give it a go, if I don't stop being a bit constipated about the whole process and, you know, stop thinking about it and just crack on, then there'll be nothing growing in the field and therefore there's nothing to sell. So, same with flowers. So you've got the flowers to sell. That's me for this evening. Good evening, my name is Rebecca from Solar Grey Foliage. If you like listening to me muse away and share my thoughts and my reasons for what we do, how we do it, when we do it, why, please do subscribe to the channel. You can do that using the bell icon at the top. We're back pretty regularly on here at the moment and there's lots going on. There's a short film that will come up about our growth in the field over the past weekend. It will take a bit of chopping and changing to make it a bit of sense, and hopefully it'll be fun to look at. There's a few squeals as I drive some machinery, and a bit of chat about all the things that have gone well, like our planning, and the things that were out of our control, like the machinery. So look out for that one coming up. If you subscribe to the channel, you will find out about everything as it happens. Otherwise, if you're feeling generous and you like the tips that I share and they're helpful to you, please do buy me a coffee. I like coffee. Thanks. Bye for now.